Well, this is a hard sermon. I could just hear my mother saying, Diane, you have bit off more than you can chew. She was right, as usual. Hell is completely out of fashion. Unpopular, not preached. I have never even been to a sermon on hell. And it's open to a lot of debate and argument. In fact, in April of this year, Time magazine ran, "What if there is no hell?" And the inside story is, probably you can read that, is hell dead? This Time article is based on a book by a Christian pastor, Rob Bell, who agrees with C.S. Lewis. Both of them believe that hell is one of the reasons that Christianity is under attack, and a major reason why young people don't want to go to church. Bell's book, titled Love Wins, goes along with all the popular ideas in Christianity of 2011, and I got on Google and tried to figure out what those were, and you can almost guess what they are. This is what people want to hear. They want to hear about grace, joy, faith, love, and prayer. And I like to hear about those things too. Well, at this point, because hell seems so out of fashion in 2011, I want to go back to 1741. Now, for those of you who can't remember your history, there was no Constitution, no United States, no Racine, no Wisconsin. We had a group of Puritans huddled by the Atlantic Ocean. And in 1741, the most famous American sermon that was ever written was delivered in Enfield, Connecticut. And Lily and I probably know why this is the most famous American sermon, and that's because it is printed in all the American literature textbooks that I have ever read. That doesn't mean there are some that go without it, because I've talked to friends about this and they can't remember it, but I remember still to this day being scared about that sermon. And this is where the kids aren't even supposed to listen, because I've asked Jerry Belland to come up and read 2 paragraphs from the 1741 sermon by Jonathan Edwards.
There is the dreadful pit of the glowing flames of the wrath of God. There is hell's wide, gaping mouth open, and you have nothing to stand upon, nor anything to take hold of. There is nothing between you and hell but the air. 'Tis only the power and mere pleasure of God that holds you up. Your wickedness makes you as heavy as lead, and to tend downwards with great weight and pressure towards hell. And if God should let you go, you would immediately sink and swiftly descend and plunge into the bottomless gulf. All your righteousness would have no more influence to uphold you and keep you out of hell than a spider's web would have to stop a falling rock. The sovereign pleasure of God, for the present, stays his rough wind. Otherwise it would come with fury, and your destruction would come like a whirlwind, and you would be like the chaff of the summer threshing floor.
Oh, geez. Back in 1741, that is the type of sermon that was often given. I think they wanted to scare people straight. Personally, I want to say up front, I do not believe in this version of hell. I don't think God is angry. I don't think I am wicked. And personally, I don't even believe hell is a dreadful place or pit with glowing flames. I do like this simile that spiders go. I think that's what I remember from high school. That it's like hanging by this little tiny thread like a spider over that pit. Despite the fact that hell is unpopular, we have to examine the fact that Jesus mentions it 15 times in the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So if Jesus believes in it and talks about it, who am I to discard it? Because I don't think he was stupid, and I don't think he was a liar. So today we're working with one of those 15 passages, the passages that Ron just read, and we're going to look at it again like we did last week. So if you can find the passage back in your bulletin, I'm going to read it through, and hopefully I have it. And I'm going to, oh, it's very funny. I'll find it. I'm going to talk about it as I read it, as soon as I find the thing. The best planning. Okay, are you ready? When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him. I have no idea what that means. It's way out of my reality zone. It's a mystery. I'm skipping that part. Jesus, who is the Son of Man, will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. I want you to think about the word shepherd. Every time the word shepherd is mentioned about Jesus, or going back into the Psalms, it's always someone very kind and loving. It isn't just a nasty guy with his sheep and goats. We've got the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And then I want to talk about those goats. Actually, they have a very bad reputation. Goats, I had to research this too. They all have horns and beards, even the girls. They're very intelligent. Much more intelligent than sheep, whatever that means. And they're so clever they can figure out how to get out of fences and out of barns. This is cool. They can climb trees if they're slanted, kind of like cats. And they, some of you know from going to York County, they can eat grass off of roofs. Anyway, so I'm thinking that shepherd and the sheep and the goats are all metaphors. Because Jesus was not a shepherd, he was a carpenter. Some say he was a Jewish rabbi. He wasn't a shepherd. And Jesus is not really separating sheep and goats. He's separating people. So far we have 3 metaphors. All right, where did it go? He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on the left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by the Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." I love that. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." All of these are actions. And then they ask Jesus, we didn't do this for you. And he answers, "Well, you did it for someone who needed it, and that was me." And then we go through the same process with those on his left, where he says, "You didn't give me anything to eat. You didn't give me anything to drink. You didn't invite me in. You didn't give me any clothes. You didn't look after people in prison." Then they have to go away to eternal punishment. I think, personally, this is just me, and anybody who wants to debate it, I'll be in church, or next fall there's Sunday school where we can debate anything we want to. But I personally think that eternal fire thing is a metaphor too, like the sheep and the goats and the shepherd. Okay, so that's basically what I have to say there, the concept of metaphors, but I'm not excluding the idea of hell. All right. Because even without these flames, this passage is enough to get me busy. I will take clothes to the Goodwill. I'll go to the Piggly Wiggly and I'll buy the cheapest vegetables for the food pantry. I visited my mother almost every day when she was sick. And as I do this moral inventory, I might be like some of you and come up rather short. I mean, I'm perplexed at how much I would have to do, especially since I've really had a good life. I had a great husband, I had great children, I had a rewarding job as a teacher, I had air conditioning. I think, help those athletes out there. I saw them one year on a hot day, and the medical tent was just filled with dehydrated people, so they might need your prayers. Most of the people around this earth, many of them in Racine, don't live this kind of blessed life. We have people with serious mental illnesses, some around the world who live with infested water or are the victims of abuse. There are people who cannot release grudges. There are people who are lonely. There are people who are suffering because their children are suffering, or their parents are suffering, or they're suffering. There are people that we just heard who can't find jobs. We have people living in war zones and disaster zones. And at this point I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to talk about next? So I got up from the computer and paced around in the backyard. This is Monday, and I started picking up sticks from the storm. And then I said, well, there's only one way to go, and that's to go back to my fallout position. That Jesus gave us 2 commandments, and I think last year I asked what they were, and Ellie was the only one who was brave enough to raise her hand, so I won't put us through that again. But Jesus commands us to do 2 things. Love God, love our neighbors. And this is exactly what John Wesley preached, who, if you're visiting, was the founder of Methodism. He said, personal faith and social responsibility cannot be separated. Unless your personal faith of loving God and loving your neighbor, which of course is about anybody, social responsibility to our neighbor, and loving God cannot be separated. The early Methodist movement was not even in a church building. It was out among the poor. Wesley wanted all of us to help everyone else. And I know what some of you are thinking, because we have some Bible scholars in here. There are Bible passages that say we are saved on faith alone. And that kind of eases my consciousness a bit, because I love to pray. Social responsibility is the part that seems a lot more work.